My husband slept with my childhood best friend while I was in labor. Now he's begging for forgiveness. But I've already filed for divorce and cut all contact. My husband Dev and I started dating when I was 21 and he was 23. We were together for almost 2 years before he proposed. We've now been married for 12 years and have 2 children. During our second year of dating, Dev introduced me to his mother, Mallory. I liked her right away and really tried to win her over, but sadly she didn't feel the same about me. You see, Mallory had been a widow for a long time. Her husband died of a heart attack years ago and she raised Dev on her own. Naturally, they're extremely close. You could say he's a bit of a mama's boy. He was very anxious about me meeting her. He's always craved her approval in everything he does. The main reason Mallory never warmed up to me is because I come from an upper-middle-class background. My parents owned several businesses, and I grew up quite comfortably. While they supported me with things like paying for college and helping me buy my first car so I could get to work, they also raised me to be independent and stand on my own. I've always worked hard to support myself and never asked them for financial help after graduation. Dev, on the other hand, had a much tougher upbringing. His father was in the military and was rarely home, and after his father passed away, he and Mallory became inseparable. Mallory struggled with alcoholism, so Dev had to care for her from a young age. He started working part-time at McDonald's while still in school. Later, when he realized he didn't enjoy his communications degree, he dropped out of college. That time in his life was very hard. He's told me how lost and unhappy he felt as a college dropout. Finding a decent job without a degree was tough, so he eventually started working as a freelance writer. Surprisingly, he did quite well and loved the freedom it gave him to travel. He spent several years as a digital nomad before we met and settled down. Through all those years, Mallory would ask him to send her money every month, and he always did, even when it left him struggling financially. As our relationship got more serious, I finally decided to tell him about my family and our generational wealth. At first, he didn't believe me, until he Googled my family. He was shocked and furious that I had kept it from him, accusing me of not trusting him. I tried to explain that I'd been burned before. People from my past only wanted to be with me because of my background, so I'd learned to wait before revealing anything. He eventually understood and accepted it, though now and then he'd throw sarcastic jabs, saying I didn't know what it meant to struggle, or that I never had to try hard. Those comments hurt deeply. Despite my family's wealth, I worked hard to carve out my own career. I loved managing influencers and brands. That's how I built and funded my lifestyle without ever needing help from my parents. Dev never really respected that. Looking back, that should have been my first red flag. When we decided to live together, Dev immediately suggested moving into my place because it was bigger. I agreed, and we started discussing how to divide the rent, but Dev didn't like that. He reminded me that he earned very little as a freelance writer and insisted that, since I came from money, I should prove my love by covering all the rent and bills. I told him I didn't think it was fair. I was willing to let the rent slide, but he needed to cover his own expenses. Dev didn't take that well. He raised his voice, called me selfish, and said my refusal to help proved how heartless I could be. We argued endlessly until I gave in. I made sacrifice after sacrifice to cover everything, but I was blindly in love. All the while, Dev kept sending money to his mother. When James was born, I gave up everything else. I barely slept. I hardly ate. My entire world revolved around that baby. Dev, meanwhile, was emotionally checked out. He barely held James, never woke up at night, even when I was falling apart. The one time I asked for help, just one night so I could rest, he snapped. He told me he had real work to do and couldn't afford to lose sleep. Meanwhile, he kept pampering his mother from a distance, sending her monthly allowances and lavish gifts. Every time I pointed out how he somehow always had money for her but never enough to help with our bills or baby expenses, he'd get defensive. He'd say, "My mom needs it more than we do. She's alone and old. You wouldn't understand." That always left me feeling like the bad guy, so I eventually stopped bringing it up altogether. When Dev proposed to me, I was over the moon. But honestly, looking back now, he put the bare minimum effort into it. I had hoped he'd finally do something grand, something thoughtful, but instead he decided a backyard proposal was enough. To his credit, he did ask my parents for my hand in marriage, which I appreciated. My mother, who adored Dev, even suggested he get help from my best friend Kylie to make the proposal special. He agreed, and together they came up with the genius idea, cue the sarcasm, of proposing to me in our backyard, surrounded by family and friends. Kylie had been my best friend since high school. Her family was like my second home, just as mine was to her. Our moms were childhood best friends, which is how Kylie and I had been so close for so long. We were more than friends. We were like sisters, soulmates. We did everything together. Her mom treated me like her daughter, and my mom felt the same way about Kylie. Naturally, when Dev and I began dating, I introduced him to Kylie, and the two got along well. She even helped him pick out my engagement ring and plan the entire proposal. I'll admit, I was surprised when the proposal happened. I didn't expect it at all. I was a bit disappointed that it wasn't somewhere more special, but the sight of my entire family there, smiling and cheering for us, helped me appreciate the moment. My mother, Kylie, and Kylie's mom were the first to hug and congratulate me. Dev's mother, Mallory, even appeared to be genuinely happy for us. She gave me a forced smile and told me she expected a lot from me as a daughter-in-law, and that I better do everything I could to keep her son happy. That night felt joyful, but once we were married, I noticed a pattern. I continued to pay for everything. Dev didn't spend a dime on me. I paid for our weekly date nights, our anniversary dinners, even our vacations. His excuse? He was saving for our future. When I became pregnant with James, things shifted again. The pregnancy was rough, and my doctor recommended I take it easy and quit work. Dev didn't like that one bit. He argued with me, saying if I stopped working, we'd be broke and wouldn't be able to raise a child. I was heartbroken. I cried for days, feeling unsupported and scared. That's when, for the first time, I opened up to my parents about our financial situation and Dev's behavior. My mother, surprisingly, took Dev's side. She said he was right and reminded me that plenty of women work while pregnant, but my father was furious. He called Dev directly and gave him a harsh piece of his mind. He told him it was time to grow up, to take responsibility, and that if he couldn't be a man for his family, then maybe we'd be better off divorcing. He warned Dev that he wouldn't let his daughters suffer like this. That call scared Dev. I'd never brought up divorce myself, but the truth is, we had signed a prenup before the wedding, at my father's insistence. Dev knew if we divorced, he'd lose everything. The house, the car, both were under my name, and with no claim to my wealth, his comfortable lifestyle would disappear overnight. After that conversation with my dad, Dev finally changed, at least a little. He stopped sending money to his mother and started paying the bills. I still covered the rent since I had savings to fall back on, but the burden lightened. However, Mallory noticed the change immediately and blamed me. She became even colder toward me, furious that I had taken away her access to Dev's money. When I gave birth to James, I was overwhelmed with joy. Friends and family filled the hospital room to meet him, and Kylie stayed by my side for several days, making sure I had everything I needed, especially since Dev was too busy with work to help with the baby or even check in much. But once I got home, the real challenge began. Being a first-time mom was exhausting. Kylie tried to support me, but even she couldn't fully understand how hard it was. I think she just wanted to enjoy time with her grandson. Meanwhile, Dev stayed home all day, glued to his screen, playing video games like some teenager on summer break. He didn't lift a finger. No laundry, no meals. Barely even looked at James when we were all in the same room. It was like the moment I started contributing financially again, he mentally checked out, for good. During that time, I was completely drained. Between the difficult pregnancy, my part-time freelancing, the non-stop household work, and raising James, I felt like a machine on the verge of breaking down. Dev, on the other hand, treated my efforts as expected, like I owed it to him and the family. The few times I tried to ask for help, he'd either ignore me or mockingly say, "Well, you're the one who wanted another baby." I couldn't even confide in my mother anymore. She still believed that women should be able to handle everything without complaining. She would dismiss my exhaustion as just a phase, or tell me I was being dramatic. My father, though, still tried to support me in any way he could, even financially. But I refused his money because I wanted to prove to myself that I could do this on my own. Kylie's support became more vital than ever. She'd check in on me constantly, help me with errands when I was too exhausted, and listen without judgment whenever I needed to vent. She never held back when it came to criticizing Dev, and honestly, it felt validating to have someone else see what I was going through. Her anger mirrored mine, and sometimes That was the only thing keeping me from completely falling apart. Then came the second pregnancy. It was an accident. I hadn't planned on having another baby so soon after James, but once the test came back positive, I took a deep breath and tried to see it as a blessing. Dev didn't share that view. He completely lost it when I told him, shouting that we weren't ready and demanding that I terminate the pregnancy. I stood my ground, and that argument cemented something inside me. I needed to protect myself and my kids, with or without his support. I reached out to my old boss, who was more than happy to welcome me back as a freelancer. It was a lifeline. I threw myself into work, determined to take control of my future. But this time, I made a change. Instead of depositing my entire paycheck into our joint account like before, I kept half for myself and transferred the rest. I didn't want to be left with nothing again, not when I had two little ones depending on me. As soon as the money started coming in, Dev started slacking even more. He began complaining about his freelance gigs and talked non-stop about how he hated writing now. I tried to reason with him, reminding him he didn't have a degree and that he was lucky to be doing so well without one. That only made him bitter. He hated being reminded that he was a college dropout, even though it was just the truth. He started saying things like, "You took time off when you were pregnant. Why can't I?" I reminded him that I hadn't just taken time off. I had been growing a human being, sick every day, dealing with depression, and still taking care of the house and James. But it didn't matter. Dev had already made up his mind. He quit. He claimed we had enough savings and that now that I was working he could finally relax. From that moment on, his days were spent entirely in front of a screen. I'd come home after hours of working and running errands to find dishes piled up, toys everywhere, and James crying for attention. Dev wouldn't even notice. I was basically a full-time mother, a full-time worker, and a full-time housekeeper, all rolled into one. When I had to go out for work, I left James with my parents. My mom was more than happy to watch him, despite knowing how exhausted I was. I think, in her own way, it was how she tried to make up for all the times she didn't support me emotionally. At least James was cared for and safe. As for Dev, he didn't even ask where James was most days. He was too busy playing games and talking to his online buddies to notice anything around him. Every day I felt like I was drowning. Again, watching him every day slowly became unbearable. I'd come home after picking up James from my mom's, and there Dev would be, planted in the same spot on the couch, controller in hand, eyes locked on the screen. It was like time stood still for him, while for me, it never stopped moving. The stress, the exhaustion, the weight of doing everything alone, I couldn't take it anymore. One evening, after putting James to bed, I snapped. I confronted Dev and told him point blank that he needed to start job hunting immediately. I was done carrying the entire load while he lounged around like a teenager. But instead of taking it seriously, he started spending even more time at his friend Clinton's house. Clinton was a bitter middle-aged divorcee whose wife had cheated on him and left. Ever since then, he'd become aggressively misogynistic, always making cruel, hateful remarks about women. I never liked going to his place, and frankly, I didn't like Dev spending so much time with someone so toxic. As Dev spent more and more time at Clinton's, our arguments increased. I was slowly becoming a single parent in every way. He didn't cook, he didn't clean, he didn't play with James, or even ask how his day went. But I held on, for my kids, not for him. Then came Na, our second baby. The night I went into labor, I called Dev over and over. He didn't pick up, he didn't text back, he didn't even check his phone. My parents ended up rushing me to the emergency room, and Dev missed the birth of his second child. I made excuses for him at the time, told myself he was busy, or maybe his phone was dead. But looking back, the red flags were practically screaming. Even Kylie didn't answer that night when I tried to reach her. She came to visit me and Na the next day, apologizing and saying she had been stuck at work. I believed her. Why wouldn't I? After Na was born, I finally stood my ground. I told Dev this was his final chance. If he didn't step up, if he didn't get back to work and take responsibility, I was packing up and leaving. I didn't yell. I didn't beg. I just told him the truth. I couldn't do it alone anymore. I told him I wouldn't hold anything against him if he wanted to walk away. But shockingly, he agreed to start looking for a job the next day. I was surprised. I had expected pushback, maybe another fight, but he just agreed, or so I thought. The next morning, while Dev was in the shower, I went to grab his dirty clothes for laundry. That's when I heard it, a ping from his phone. Out of habit, I glanced at the screen. What I saw made my stomach drop. It was a message from a number I recognized. "When will you be telling her about us? I'm pregnant and can't hold off the news any longer." My blood froze. My hands trembled as I picked up the phone. I must have read that message 5 times before the words really sank in. Pregnant? Telling me? Us? I couldn't breathe. I was paralyzed with shock. Dev stepped out of the shower and saw me standing there, stiff, with his phone in hand. He rushed over and tried to grab it, but it was too late. I had already seen everything. Without thinking, I dropped the laundry basket, walked up to him, and slapped him across the face. Hard. I didn't even recognize myself in that moment. It was like rage took control of my body. He stood there stunned, stammering nonsense, trying to convince me it was all a misunderstanding. But I wasn't listening. I looked him dead in the eye and told him he was dead to me. Then I turned around, packed my bags, packed the kids' bags, and drove straight to my parents' house. When they saw me at their doorstep, tear-streaked, trembling, dragging suitcases with 2 little kids in tow, they were stunned, and that's when I broke down. I told them everything, every detail, every betrayal. I've been crying for 2 days straight. My boss has been kind enough to give me a few days off work, but honestly, I'm still in shock. I feel like my life just shattered into a million pieces. I never thought I'd be writing something like this on Reddit, but I needed to let it out. My best friend, my soulmate of 20 years, slept with my husband, and now she's pregnant with his child. Dev and Kylie, 2 people I loved and trusted more than anyone else in the world. They've both been calling and texting non-stop. They keep saying I should at least give them a chance to explain. Dev is begging me not to divorce him, telling me to think of our children, but I don't think there's anything left to save. I don't know if I'll go through with the divorce, but what I do know is that if I do, I'm taking everything. Everything I gave him. The car, the house, the comfort, all of it. Hey guys, thank you for your kind messages and support. It truly means more than I can say. Lately though, something just hasn't felt right. My own mother, the same woman who watched me cry over Dev's neglect and betrayal, is now pushing for him to get full custody of our children. It doesn't make sense, unless there's more going on behind the scenes. Something she's not telling me. It's been a whirlwind of emotions these past few weeks. I'm back at work now because honestly, I can't afford to let my personal life sink my career. Being busy helps me cope. It's the only time I don't think about the betrayal. Some of you were right all along about Dev and Kylie having an affair for a while. Turns out you all saw the red flags I was too blind to notice. Kylie sent me a long, pathetic message claiming she didn't mean to fall in love with Dev, but now that she's pregnant, she needs to prioritize herself, and that's why she pushed Dev to tell me the truth. Dev, on the other hand, admitted that he only meant to hook up with Kylie and never intended to leave me. But since she's now carrying his child, he's stuck. He even had the audacity to suggest that I forgive him and convince Kylie to give up the baby so we could raise it together. The entitlement and delusion in that man is unbelievable. Apparently, while he was going over to Clinton's every day to play video games, he was also complaining about our marriage to Kylie. He told her he felt emotionally neglected because I was pressuring him to find a job. And Kylie, instead of telling him to grow up and take responsibility, decided to be the shoulder he cried on. Clinton, his misogynistic best friend, also encouraged the affair, telling Dev that Kylie was more of a woman than I'd ever be. That's how their little meetup turned into a full-blown betrayal. I can't believe Kylie, who had seen firsthand how Dev treated me, decided to sleep with him anyway. I don't care what her excuse is. This betrayal is unforgivable. She even had the nerve to text me and say I should be grateful that she's taking Dev off my hands, that I clearly didn't have the strength to leave him. Maybe she planned this all along. Who knows? But in the end, she did me a favor. Let her have him. Let her suffer the consequences of being with someone like Dev. I hope she realizes what a mess she's brought into her life. Looking back, I'm almost certain that the night I went into labor, they were together. That's why neither of them answered my calls. That's why I had to go through the scariest moment of my life without either of them by my side. That realization alone still makes my chest ache. When I told my parents about everything, my mother refused to believe me. She insisted there had to be some misunderstanding. She said there was no way Kylie would do something so low. Meanwhile, my father called Dev immediately and yelled at him for 15 straight minutes. The contrast between their reactions made me feel even more alone. I also called Kylie's mom to tell her what happened, and her reaction was the complete opposite of my mother's. She didn't question me once. She immediately believed me. She cried with me and kept repeating how sorry she was for what her daughter had done. She understood my pain better than my own mother did, and I'll never forget that. After speaking with my dad, I decided to file for divorce. We already found a lawyer, and with the prenup and Dev's infidelity, it should be a straightforward case. The only potential complication is the custody of the kids. But honestly, I don't think Dev will fight too hard. He's never shown any interest in being a responsible parent. I'm confident I'll get full custody. But my mother has become a new source of stress. She's completely against my decision to divorce. At first, she begged me to reconsider, but when she realized I wouldn't budge, she changed tactics. That's when she started suggesting that I give Dev full custody of the kids. At first I thought she was joking. It was so outrageous I laughed it off, but she kept bringing it up, again and again. Today I finally exploded. I yelled at her, asking how she could possibly suggest something like that, knowing full well that Dev is in no position to raise our children. She didn't even respond. She just turned and walked out of the room. Her sudden shift in behavior has me completely unsettled. Why would my own mother, who witnessed firsthand the years I spent suffering, suddenly take Dev's side? It doesn't add up. Something feels deeply wrong. So I've made a decision. I'm going to sit down with both of my parents, together, and demand answers. Because right now, nothing makes sense. And if the truth is what I'm starting to suspect, that she really wants Dev in her life, and the only way to make that happen is for me to give up custody, then this goes far deeper than I ever imagined. Hearing this confession shattered something inside me. My own mother, the woman who raised me, had been trying to manipulate me into giving up my children, just to help my cheating ex and my so-called best friend play house with their new baby. She had secretly been meeting with Kylie, sympathizing with her, and plotting behind my back, all while watching me cry myself to sleep every night. I felt physically sick. My dad was stunned. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. He turned to my mother with disgust and asked her if she had lost her mind. He reminded her that Kylie had destroyed our family, that Dev had abandoned his duties as a husband and father, and that siding with them was a betrayal of me, of our family, and of her own values. My mother had no answers. She just sat there looking ashamed and helpless. For once, she didn't try to justify her actions. Maybe she finally realized how much damage she had done, or maybe she just didn't expect to be confronted so directly. I walked out of that conversation with one thing clear in my mind. I was done seeking approval or support from anyone who didn't have my back. Blood or not, I wasn't going to let anyone convince me to sacrifice my children or my peace ever again. Since then, I've doubled down on building a future for myself and my kids. The divorce proceedings are moving quickly, and thanks to the prenup and Dev's clear infidelity, everything is working in my favor. My lawyer is confident I'll get full custody, especially with the evidence of Dev's neglect and absence from our children's lives. He hasn't even asked to see them, not once. And James is old enough to understand who's really been there for him. That makes a difference in court. The support from my dad, Kylie's mom, and even distant friends and relatives has meant the world to me. People I hadn't spoken to in years reached out to express their anger on my behalf and to offer their support. As for Kylie and Dev, they're still trying to spin the story, calling me bitter, calling me vindictive, but no one is buying it. Their reputations are in the gutter, and frankly, they deserve it. This week, I blocked Dev and Kylie on every platform. I told my lawyer I don't want to be contacted by them directly, and that all communication must go through legal channels. I don't want their names showing up on my phone. I don't want to hear their voices. I don't want anything to do with them. They are ghosts to me now. I won't lie. Some nights are hard. The silence after the kids go to bed feels heavier. The betrayal cuts deep, and sometimes the grief sneaks up on me when I least expect it. But I'm healing. Slowly, day by day, I'm finding myself again, stronger, clearer, and more determined than ever to protect my peace. If any of you reading this are going through something similar, I want you to know, you are not weak for walking away. You are powerful for choosing yourself. You are brave for standing up against those who tried to break you. This isn't the end of my story. It's just the beginning of a new chapter. Completely severed ties. She told me Kylie is now struggling both emotionally and financially, and although she sometimes feels guilty as a mother, she reminds herself that actions have consequences, and Kylie has to live with hers. Hearing that didn't bring me joy, but it did bring closure. I didn't need revenge. I just needed to know that I wasn't the crazy one, that I wasn't wrong for demanding respect, love, and basic human decency. And now, finally, I feel that weight lifting off my chest. Dev continues to send the court-mandated child support, and so far he hasn't tried to contact me or the kids. I've kept everything strict and legal. There are no birthday visits, no casual check-ins. He's just a name on a check to us now, and honestly, that's exactly how I want it. James and Na are thriving. James is more talkative now, and even helps me around the house in small ways. Na is growing fast and loves to snuggle up with me every night. I've been pouring all my energy into building a stable, safe, and loving environment for them. Something they never got when Dev was around. They may be young, but kids can sense peace. And that's what we have now, peace. As for me, I've started therapy too. It wasn't easy admitting I needed help, but it's been the best decision I've made. I'm learning to set boundaries, to value myself again, and to let go of the guilt I never should have carried in the first place. I'm slowly rediscovering who I am outside of the titles of wife and mother. I've started journaling, reading again, going for evening walks after the kids fall asleep. I even treated myself to a weekend spa retreat, something I hadn't done since before I got married. Work is going well. My boss, who was incredibly understanding through all of this, recently offered me a more permanent position with flexible hours so I can continue managing my work-life balance as a single parent. I'm earning more than ever, and with the child support, my kids are well taken care of. To everyone who followed this journey and stood by me with words of encouragement and support, you have no idea how much that meant to me. Every upvote, every comment, every kind message, it mattered. When I felt like no one in my real life could be trusted, this community became my anchor. My story isn't over, but this chapter, this dark, soul-crushing, betrayal-filled chapter, is finally closed. I don't know what the future holds, but for the first time in a long time I'm not scared of it. I'm ready. It almost feels comical now to see how karma is finally catching up to Kylie. According to what I've heard through the grapevine, Dev wants absolutely nothing to do with her or their unborn child. He's made it clear that he has no interest in marrying her and refuses to step up, just like I always knew he would. The man has always run from responsibility, and now Kylie is learning that the hard way. Even Mallory is furious with Dev. She's finally realizing how much she's lost because of her son's selfishness. James and Na, her only grandchildren, are no longer in her life, and it's all because of the decisions Dev made. But even now, he remains defiant and refuses to take accountability. He's lost everything, and still, he chooses pride over repair. As for me, I'm doing so much better. Since finalizing the divorce, I've shifted all my focus onto my children. They are my entire world, and every moment I spend with them is a reminder of how far I've come. I don't dwell on the past anymore. I won't lie. This journey has been long and incredibly painful, but not for a second do I regret any of the choices I've made. I'm grateful that I once loved Dev, and even more grateful that I married him, because without that chapter of my life, I wouldn't have James and Na. They are the brightest, most beautiful gifts I've ever received. I'm also thankful that Dev cheated on me. Yes, thankful, because that betrayal became the final, undeniable push I needed to break free. Without it, I might still be stuck in that hollow, loveless marriage, pouring myself into someone who only drained me in return. That moment of heartbreak became the turning point in reclaiming my life. I truly believe everything happens for a reason, and though I may not understand it all in the moment, I trust that it's all part of God's plan. He has carried me through storms I never thought I'd survive, and now, as I stand here stronger than ever, I know He never left my side. Here's to healing, here's to growth, and here's to the peace that comes after choosing yourself.